All right, so I guess we can get into Arkham City now.
Mm-hmm.
The masterpiece that it is.
The
Definitely,
best one.
yeah. I still think it's the best superhero video game ever made.
It's one of my, I would say, easily top five video games of all time for me.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe even top three. I feel like I don't usually play through games more than once.
Yeah.
I feel like once I've played through a game, like I've experienced it, like I'm done. I
Mm-hmm.
feel like with Arkham City, I've played through that game probably 3 or 4 times,
Yeah,
which I don't do.
I think I've played through it like 3 different times
Yeah.
just to try to do that. Like I've yeah, I always play games on the hardest mode, and I love games that are like, hey, you beat it on hard mode. Here's insane mode, and that game gives you
Mm-hmm.
that. So like, of course, I did it on the even harder mode, and it was just as fun and enjoyable. And it I like playing it on the hardest mode because then I actually like when I actually overcome it, I feel like I'm like, no, I am Batman.
Yeah.
Like a few hits can kill me. Like if I get shot by a gun, I'm going to die.
And it came out not because it came out like 2 years after Arkham Asylum did.
Yeah.
I was maybe they started working on it before.
I feel like they were probably like
Yeah.
they knew where what they couldn't do, and they were like, we didn't have time to do this for Asylum, so they immediately were just like, yeah, we can do this, this, and this, and this.
Well, the thing I really love is that if you play Arkham Asylum, there's an Easter egg for Arkham City,
Mm-hmm.
and they hit it so well in the game that I think they had to tell people like, "Hey, why don't you bomb this wall in the game?" Like, no one found it. I think until about like half a year after the game was released. There's like a hidden room in Arkham Asylum where you see the plans for Arkham City.
Oh, that's cool.
Yeah, so like I kind of like that
I did not
they
know
thought ahead because
Yeah.
I think the basis of Arkham City is that you play the first game in Arkham Asylum, and I think the next logical step is to give you that open air feel of being in Gotham City. And this game mostly gives you to you because you are in Gotham City technically, but you're in Arkham City.
You're just on the island where the prison or
Yeah,
the
you're in an
insane
open air
asylum is.
prison that
Yeah.
it was bought up with all the slums from the like another comic book logic where it's like a big open air prison where we just bought up a bunch of city streets. You can all live here and have free reign. You can kill each other, do whatever you want. Just,
Like,
don't get
bring
out.
it. Just don't bring it over here. Just don't do that. Yeah, that was actually pretty interesting. Because because you basically, I mean, it does make some sense because you basically destroy the asylum.
Oh, yeah.
In the first game,
It's
so
done.
like as a result of that, it's like we don't have like we can't put everybody in Blackgate. So you kind of just like they're like we just have this city, and it's like if you guys stay there, we won't bother you, but you have to stay there, or we will like enforce the law.
And the warden of Arkham becomes the mayor of Arkham.
Yeah,
And because I feel like in the first game, the main villain is like the Joker, obviously. In this game, it's Hugo Strange and then, spoilers, Ra's al Ghul.
yeah,
I would say are like the main villains, but the Joker. I feel like this is a pattern you see a lot in these Arkham games where you
Yeah.
have your main villain, but the Joker looms over everything.
yeah.
He's
And-
always
Like you almost forget that Ra's is the main villain.
yeah.
Because the Joker just he has such a presence, and well, yeah, I guess because like the story is that the Joker is sick because of, like
The Titan formula.
because of the Titan formula, so he has a limited time to live, and like you don't know that when you're going to go talk to him, and he infects you with it, and he
Yeah.
was like, oh, both of us. It's like, hey, if you don't get the cure, we're both gonna die. So the whole time you're trying to find the cure, and then he also sends his blood to a bunch of hospitals, so he's infecting people in Gotham City. So you have to get the formula not only for yourself, not only for the Joker, but also for people who are in hospitals who are just sick and just
which will
getting
play
blood.
into Arkham Knight.
Yeah. But the thing that I guess I love most about this game is not only do they step it up, like they improved on so many things, and so like even like the combat was fine, and they were like, no, we're gonna do better, and they did better, and they even took away things that were unnecessary, and they made it cleaner, and like they fixed detective mode in a way, and they made like they implemented like that fear mechanic, so like you could do like multiple takedowns at the
Yep.
same time, and like I think it was in this game where like there's this one moment where like there's you activate detective mode, and you could see like there's 5 or 6 guys behind this wall, and like there's like 3 guys lined up right, like, or 3 or 4 guys lined up like right against it, and because they're just like expecting you to come out of a door because that's what Batman does.
Yeah.
So like, and like they give you this explosive gel so you could blow up walls, and it's one of the walls you could blow up. So you put the explosive gel on, and then you go into the grates, and then you go underneath them, and like at this point your fear's built all the way up, and you could take down 3 guys at once. Like
I think that's Arkham Knight.
Is it?
Yeah.
All right, so that's Arkham Knight. So we can talk about.
I mean,
that
I think
later,
the thing is though, to go off of your point, this game is bigger and better in every way, shape, or form. Like,
Yeah.
If you go back and play Arkham Asylum and you do the combat in the Predator mode, like, not that it's bad, but it's very rudimentary and it feels a little rough around the edges. But in this game, it's just like they add more combat options, more Predator options, and everything is just finely tuned. And,
and then the traversal just
it's amazing.
My God,
the best.
So they allow you to glide, and then you could like dive and build momentum, and then you could go even higher and faster and farther. And then they let you use the grappling hook to build up speed as well. And I'm like, I don't even know how they thought of this.
Just more of everything.
Yeah, it worked so well. And like the Scarecrow's not even in the second one.
No, but everybody else.
Everybody else is, except for Killer Croc.
It was like he has a cameo in the game.
Very
quick cameo in the game. You don't fight him, but I feel like for that it's like Smash Bros. Ultimate. Everybody's here.
Everyone's here.
They were like, "Oh, you're disappointed the Penguin and Two-Face were in Arkham Asylum? They're here this time."
But then they added something, and like they could have just made this simply DLC, but it was like a pre-order bonus where you could play the game as like there's like a prologue section where you're Catwoman.
Mm-hmm.
And like it's a legitimately different
play style.
Yeah, like she plays very differently. She doesn't have a cape, so she can't glide, but she can still traverse the environment with her whip.
She's quick.
Yeah, and she's quicker than Batman, and she's got like a few other things, and like she's also limited. Like she doesn't have as many gadgets, but she has a couple of other moves that he's not able to do, and it feels really like satisfying. Again, it's like, wow, like
it is, and it's interspersed a bit throughout the game. Like I think that's my biggest complaint about it, is that there's not a lot of it. Like the parts where you play as Catwoman are pretty short, which sucks because like it's a lot of fun to play as her. But like once you beat the game, you have the ability to switch between Batman and Catwoman. So I thought that was really cool. That apart from just putting her in the game, they just fully put her in the game as a playable character, which I loved.
I really enjoyed that. And then, I mean, eventually they came out with like some DLC, and you could play as Robin and Nightwing, with like his emo haircut, which is pretty funny. Yeah.
Well, I think that kind of stinks because with Nightwing, it's just challenge maps.
Yeah.
Because I remember that was another one too. It's like, well, Black Mask isn't in the game, but he's in the challenge maps with Nightwing.
Yeah, and like I wish that I could have like traversed the environment with Nightwing a bit and seen what that was like. Wasn't Robin only in the challenge maps too?
Robin was just in that separate. I think you could play as him in the challenge maps, but he had his own separate DLC story where you got to play as him.
Yeah.
Because with this game, I mean, it still has the same kind of silly comic booky story, but you take it a lot more seriously in this one. Like it works a lot better, which is there's an open air prison built, and Batman's investigating. I think that was what I loved about it, is that you start off the game as Bruce Wayne.
Yeah. Because
this prison not only has regular criminals, but also has political prisoners and people that are opposed to Arkham City. Like basically, if you're against this idea, you're going to get dragged into this prison. So at the beginning of the game, you're Bruce Wayne, you're fighting against this prison, and then you get put into the prison where you have to fight the Penguin very briefly, and then climb up a building and get your Batman suit, and then inspect what's going on. And like you mentioned before, you have the whole story with the Joker. Yeah. I just feel like for me, that's what I love about this game, is that both these games are they're very well paced because they're not super long in terms of story. Yeah. But they give you a lot to do. Like in this game, there are a lot more side missions. Like in the Arkham, there was really just the Riddler stuff. Whereas in this game, obviously not every single villain is going to fit into the story. So you have side quests now where, you will encounter certain villains, certain
Yeah,
circumstances.
like Deadshot's trying to kill you, and
Mm-hmm.
like that, and like
Kind
that.
of team up with Bane a little bit.
Yeah, like there's a whole bunch of like little elements and just really gratifying situations, and like they like the boss fights were really revamped in this one. Like
They're so much better.
like they made them feel like every criminal definitely felt like a threat.
Yeah.
And like it was, and like the way that in order to even get to them, it was a whole thing. Like obviously the standout in this one was the Mr. Freeze fight.
By far.
Like I don't know that I've had a more enjoyable boss fight. Like it was that was one of those ones where it was fun to lose.
Yeah.
Because I was like discovering so many things about the game. Like through each stage he would manipulate the environment to like eliminate one of your abilities, because like he's a genius, so he'd be like, oh, you're gonna use that against me, and like you would do something where you kind of like shoot something and it electrocutes him, so he destroys all of those in the room, so you can't use them anymore. So then you glide and you kind of take him out from above, so he makes the air so cold that it freezes your cape. So you can't. I'm like, this is amazing. Like,
it's great. Like, if you don't know what we're talking about for the fight, you have to use your Predator moves to take him down.
Yeah.
And every time you use one, he learns it and you can't use it again. So that was one thing I was going to say. Like, in terms of Predator mode, this one has the best Predator maps. It has the best Predator scenarios. It adds new moves.
There's not a gargoyle in every single room.
Exactly. Like, I like how there's jammers now, too.
Yeah.
So it really makes you think on your toes, like I had to take out this person first without being seen before I can see everybody else. It's like it feels like they took all the criticism of Arkham Asylum to heart.
Yeah.
And they were like, okay, we're going to improve everything. The game is bigger. We've improved the combat. We've improved the Predator maps. We've improved the boss fights. Like, I would say I feel like the thing for me is like, I cannot think of really any gripes I have with the game, because when I think about with Arkham Asylum how I didn't like that Joker fight, because I feel like with a lot of video games it almost feels like they have to have a big boss fight at the end, when really like the narrative sometimes is enough.
Yeah.
Like, to briefly talk about another game I love, BioShock, that is such a great game with an amazing story, but it has a really stupid ending because it felt like at the end it's like, well, there has to be a boss fight.
Yeah.
So you fight a giant Oscar statue.
Yeah.
And it kind of cheapens the value of it, but so I was thinking that with Arkham Asylum, where it's like the narrative can be strong enough that I don't need to fight a giant mutant Joker. Mm-hmm. And this game does have a big boss fight at the end, but it makes sense.
It makes and yeah, that leads me to like, so there's things going on throughout the entire game where like you see the Joker and like you could see that he's like decrepit and getting eaten away at. But then there's this one fight scene where you're fighting a bunch of his goons. He's got the one-handed clown with the hammer, and then like you get past him, but like he also jumps into battle with them, and like you're fighting like the Joker, and like he's fighting like the Joker. He's not like a good fighter.
Yeah.
And you're kind of kicking his ass, but like you notice like he's looking kind of clean, and like he doesn't
Too clean.
Yeah, he's like, he doesn't look like he's. And at first I'm like, man, like they kind of messed up here, like. But then like they do this twist at the end where like you think he's looking in the mirror, but there's another Joker, and you're like, how is there another Joker? And then they do this reveal where it's Clayface. Mm-hmm. Clayface is pretending to be the Joker, that made me love this game like more than every other game. Like that made Clayface one of my favorite villains because of like I just saw him like, man, he could be used so well in a Batman
He's
story.
a believable final boss too.
Yeah,
because
he's a physical threat.
Yeah, like, it makes so much sense within the story.
Yeah.
But like that's why I like though too is that during the game, because the Joker infected you with his disease, you're slowly dying throughout the game. Like at one point, like Ra's al Ghul initially comes into the game because you're like, fine, I'll join your League of Assassins or anything. Just give me some of this stuff so I can live a little longer.
Yeah, to Lazarus Pit.
Like there are literally moments in this game where like you're dying. I like how when you play as Catwoman, you have a choice to make where either you leave Arkham City or you save Batman. And if you leave Arkham City, the game ends.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
I've never left. I thought.
Yeah, because if you don't save, because she saves Batman.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
So if you don't save Batman, then the game's credits just roll because she's just like, I'm going to leave, screw him. And then it's like, uh-oh, Batman, because Batman at one point like is in a building that gets bombed and he's trapped under all this rubble. So if Catwoman leaves, then no one's there to save Batman. And I mean, it's a dick move on Catwoman's part because you saved her at the very beginning of the game.
Yeah. That's pretty funny.
Because that was like, I guess in the game, that's probably the one thing I would say is my gripe with the game, that in their quest to have every Batman villain ever in that game,
There's
some of them get the short shrift. Like Two-Face shows up at the very beginning and the very end of the game.
Yeah, he just gets his ass whooped by Catwoman.
Which is awesome.
Which is
like,
fine. Yeah,
it's so like at the end of the, because like at the end of the game, at the very end of it, you play as Catwoman getting back at Two-Face.
Yeah, and
it's very satisfying.
Yeah.
Because I know that there's a big encounter with the Penguin, and the Penguin has Mr. Freeze trapped. Because that's actually kind of what I like, is that you do fight Mr. Freeze in this game.
Yeah.
But he's not really a villain.
Yeah, he's always just trying to save Nora.
Yeah, like he's just trying to save his wife. And he does, like, after the fight, you kind of knock some sense into him, and he doesn't really, because like you help him out after that. You find where his wife is, and he's thankful to you.
Yeah.
You know, Ra's al Ghul is a part of it, and Talia al Ghul.
Talia comes and like
dies.
Yeah, and
killed
then,
by the Joker.
Yeah, and they also have all those. Was it the Joker or Clayface? It was definitely the Joker that kills her.
Yeah.
Okay.
He does.
And then
she thought she killed the Joker in that scene. And it turns out the Joker she killed,
it was Clayface,
quote unquote, Clayface.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, like that. It had so many just amazing moments like that, and you would think. Yeah. And I remember people complain like, "Oh man, there's no Scarecrow." I'm like, but did they?
They didn't need him.
Scarecrow, like they knocked it out of the park with the villains that they did have.
Oh,
and,
yeah.
Like, yeah, it's like you said, like some of them kind of got the short end of the stick.
The gang's all there. I mean, that's really the only... Like, I even like the stuff of Hugo Strange in the game.
Yeah,
because obviously
I love that he knows who you are.
Yeah, like he's not a physical threat to Batman, but very much a mental threat.
And they don't treat him like he's some physical threat, which I liked. Like, I think... Like, that was one of my complaints about Asylum, I think, was... There was like I don't think that if I'm fighting the Penguin, he should have a life bar.
Yeah.
Like, I'm sorry. Like, if I get through your thugs, you're done.
I'm
Batman. Like,
yeah.
So like that was an annoying thing in like the first game, is that like he had like this life bar, so like you had to like drop kick him. You had to like drop kick him like 5 or 6 times. I'm like, come on.
That was another fight. Was Solomon Grundy.
That's right.
Remember that?
That fight was I was not expecting that. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Was that in the first or second one?
The second one.
That's right.
So I love it because I remember I used to talk to my friend John, and because I remember we would watch the trailers for that game coming out.
Yeah.
And I love that trailer where the Penguin's like, "Welcome to hell."
Yeah.
Because forever, like I never thought that the Penguin was British.
Yeah.
But in this game, he's like this like Cockney, like, "Hello, Batman."
Just a full-on Cockney. I don't know if it's in the third one or this one. Like his crew's making fun of him. Mm-hmm. He's like, you don't think that's his actual voice? He's like, nah, I'm pretty sure he just puts it on. I'm like, that's
just
good.
Makes it up.
That's pretty good. It's like, because he wants to sound more sophisticated, I guess.
You actually get to see the Riddler in this game, and he's like Jigsaw from the Saw movies. Like he just has these, which is a great
which is a great twist on
Riddler.
his because like he's putting people in all these he's like good luck saving them, and he's like this crazy narcissist. He was like, you'll never be able to figure this out. He's like, what?
Yeah.
How did you figure that out? It's fine. It's because it's not my best work, and
And I like how when you like in the first game when you find Riddler stuff, it's just like he'll talk to you occasionally and be like, "Oh, how did you figure that out?" Mm-hmm. I like how in this game, finding the Riddler trophies, doing the Riddler challenges, all that stuff, because a lot of it can get really annoying at times, but it forwards the story because the more you find these death traps that he has throughout the city where he's keeping hostages, and then I like that final encounter you have with him, where like you finally get enough where you could find out where his location is, where he's hiding the whole game. Mm-hmm. You get that kind of poetic justice where like, because he has this like trap where he has like masks on these people and they're running around, and if you cross their path they'll blow up. So that at the end, you catch the Riddler, you put the mask on him, and make him run around in his own maze.
Yeah, dude, it was really like there was a couple of things where like he tried to like do this thing where he's switching. He's basically doing the whole like the card, like the find the card trick, where it's like he's got like three little things that he's shuffling around. He's like, you got to find the victim, and I was like, detective mode.
Yeah,
he's like,
because he cheats.
Yeah.
I think that was pretty great. Is that because when I did that initially, I was like, wait, like I'm getting it right. How do I keep losing? And then I finally trying to detect him. I'm like, oh,
he's like he's been cheating. Yeah,
like I know what he did.
Yeah, it's like really funny that it's like. Because you think you're like, oh, I'm gonna play fair, and you keep losing when you play fair, and you're like, why does this keep happening? So then you cheat, and you realize he's cheating, and I'm like, that's a really well done.
And he talks like Max Headroom.
Yeah,
he's like,
yeah.
what are you doing?
Doing? Yeah, it's really well done. Like that game, there's very little that was missing from it. Like I don't really. Like again, you mentioned like maybe a little bit more Catwoman story.
Yeah. It could like I wish it were long because the game is not very long.
Yeah.
Like it's not to say it's short, like, but it's not I feel like you could probably beat the main story in 10, 15 hours.
If I'm being honest, I would have liked there to not have been the Ra's al Ghul final villain behind, because you kind of interact with him initially. And then it's like Hugo Strange is like, I got this person behind the scenes, and then it's like Ra's al Ghul. You're like, oh,
yeah,
okay.
Probably, you're kind of like, well, makes sense.
Like, like it would have been cool if it was like someone you hadn't interacted with yet, like it really, because like compared to the Clayface reveal, like you're just like, dude, like that, whatever.
But then the big thing that happens at the end of this game, which leads into the DLC, is the Joker dies.
The Joker does die, yeah.
Because you'd think. He's sick throughout most of the game, but you would figure through, once again, comic book logic, like he's going to live, and he doesn't.
Yeah.
He dies, and while he'll be back in a sense, he stays dead.
And he's
dead at the end of the game.
And I love the final things that they say to each other. Like, it was just, because, well, one, you have Kevin Conroy and Mark Hamill, but it's just, what is written for them in that final moment is just genius, in my opinion. Like, there's a part where, like, you have the cure and you're literally there to save the Joker, but he's too eager and he's too impatient, so he jumps and he stabs you like and attacks you, so you drop it, and like that's all there is left, and he's sitting there trying to lick it up off the ground. He's like, no, you dropped it, you idiot.
Yeah.
And then Batman goes, he's like, you want to hear something funny? Like while the Joker's like literally like seizing to death, and he was like, after everything you've done, all the people you've killed, I still would have saved you. And the Joker goes, that is kind of funny, and he kind of laughs himself to death, and I'm like, oh my god.
And then you just carry him outside, and put him on a cop car, and that's the end of the story. But like that is such a powerful, meaningful ending. Like when I got to the end of that journey of that story, I was like, wow, what a game. Whereas with Arkham Asylum, where it was all really good until it ended. Whereas in this game, completely different scenario, and then it leads into the Harley Quinn's Revenge DLC. Where you play as Robin. He's got his cool little shield.
Yeah.
I mean, it's a pretty short DLC.
Yeah, like the DLC for these games.
You did probably like an hour.
Yeah, none of the DLCs were ever like incredible. Like, weren't they made by like the Montreal?
I don't think so, because I think.
Well, I guess maybe that's just the Arkham Knight ones, but.
Yeah, probably the Arkham Knight ones.
Yeah.
Arkham City, though, it like I said, it's one of my favorite video games of all time.
Yeah,
like
it's perfection.
I played through it multiple times. It's the golden standard. I feel like if it's like the Star Wars trilogy, that's the Empire Strikes Back, because then
it's the Dark Knight of.
You have the Arkham Knight, which is Return of the Jedi, where it's like good, but doesn't quite stick the landing. Not really.
It's like, I'll allow it, like,
but it's still good.
Yeah.
I mean, I would probably. Maybe briefly, because I know you haven't played these two games. The Origins games, because those games...
We can talk about those briefly if you want.
Yeah.
Those were after City? And
yes.
Then before Arkham Knight?
I think basically Warner Brothers or WB Games realized, like, oh, we have a big hit on our hands with these Batman games.
Yeah.
And I think because the development time for Arkham Knight was going to take a while, and I think they wanted a new Batman game out every 2 years. So they did Origins, which is kind of, I would say it's more of like a spin-off in a way. It's a prequel to all the games. It's the only one that wasn't made by Rocksteady. So this one was made by WB Montreal.
Yeah.
Which is apparently the studio that's going to be working on the next Batman game.
Oh, boy.
I know. Well, I mean, they have time.
Yeah.
Maybe they've learned a lesson or two. But here's the thing. Like, I feel like with that game, it always gets its reputation as being the bad one. It's definitely the weakest of the Arkham games for sure.
I see.
It is not a bad game in my opinion.
Yeah, well, based off of what people have said about it, like they said that they really enjoyed like the boss fights.
Yes.
And like honestly, like, and I'm a fan of this guy too. Like Troy Baker's Joker is basically Mark Hamill's Joker.
Mm-hmm.
Like
there's no Kevin Conroy and Mark Hamill in this one, but
like,
it's Troy Baker and Nolan North.
Yeah, like Nolan North, you can tell is not Kevin Conroy, but like like Troy Baker, like he sounds incredible, like so much like he's done that voice in other games, and I thought it was Mark Hamill.
Like here's the thing, the story of Arkham Origins is pretty great.
Yeah,
it's way better than Arkham Asylum's. It like I feel like what I like about it is the characterizations are great because this is a younger Batman, so like a more feral, gruff, rough around the edges Batman, doesn't want to work with anybody, and the stuff between him and Alfred in this game is amazing because you see Alfred who just does not believe in Bruce's mission because he's worried about him, and there's a great part where he's just yelling at him. He's like, "You're not some hardened vigilante. Like, you're a rich kid with a trust fund," and that's what Alfred says to him.
That's awesome.
And it's like, you are going to kill yourself because the main plot of that game is that Black Mask, big crime lord in Gotham City, hires 8 assassins to kill you on Christmas Eve night. So there's a big price on your head. So it seems like at first that the game is about you trying to take out these 8 assassins, but the story then transfers to it really being your first encounter with the Joker. So going in line of like, it feels like the main villain of Arkham Origins is Black Mask and Bane kind of. Bane's a pretty big villain in the game, but ends up being the Joker, which for the longest time I felt like was kind of a cop-out, because the one thing I will say about this story is that once the Joker comes into play, it feels like the whole 8 assassins angle is just thrown to the side, because technically you don't even encounter all 8 of them during the game. I think a couple of them are side quests, like Lady Shiva was definitely a side quest in the game, and I think Deadshot is a side quest in the game.
That's a shame.
But the stuff between the Batman and Joker in this game too, like, is really great. There's a sequence where Joker gets captured. He's in Arkham. He's talking to Dr. Harleen Quinzel, and he kind of goes into a big monologue about like a possible origin for the Joker, where you play as him and you're walking down this long, dark, creepy hall wearing that red hood suit.
Yeah, and
it's really affecting and great. I feel like the biggest thing is that from a gameplay perspective, everything feels a little off. Like the combat feels a little off. The Predator missions feel a little off. The city, this is the first game that actually takes place in the actual Gotham City, but it's really big, like unnecessarily big for the scope of the game. Very bland. And there's no people walking around the streets because there's a curfew in place because there's 8 assassins running around this city. So that's the excuse of why there's only thugs outside, which seems kind of dumb. Like, I kind of like, because the game takes place around Christmas, so it has, like, you see some Christmas lights up and there's snow everywhere, but the city just looks kind of gray and drab, and, like, the gameplay, like, it's not bad. And you were talking about the boss fights before, and you have the Deathstroke boss fight, which is really difficult and a lot of fun, but it should be difficult.
Yeah.
But I feel like when I thought about the advertising for this game, so much of it was centered on Deathstroke being in the game. You fight him at like the very beginning of the game, pretty much.
Yeah.
And then he's out of the story.
That's a shame. And like, I guess that's kind of what I got from like the whole, like, what people thought about it, and like when I watch people analyze it. And yeah, like my biggest issue with games that are like other games and they're trying to be like other games is when they're missing that polish. Like I can't not look at it. See, I'll take a game that doesn't have particular polish and like I'll accept it for what it is. Like I like the Saints Row games because like they're not like there was a point where they were trying to be GTA.
Yeah.
And then they just completely decided to do their own thing, and once they embraced their own ridiculousness, like it became really enjoyable. It's like, see, like you're doing your own thing and now I can accept this. Like I think like that's why I like those games those prototype games because like those games aren't like incredible graphically or story-wise, but like they make you feel like a superpower, like indestructible wrecking machine, and like that's really satisfying. So like I can forego the ridiculousness that like they're like, even though I've beaten the game and rid it of the supposed threat, like that there's still like a quarter of New York City that's zombies, and like there's all these mutant monsters everywhere, and like I'm like I can completely forgo that because I can just run up buildings and smash into things and feel really good. So like there's so like I can appreciate that, but yeah, I feel like I couldn't have possibly played Origins. Like I was looking at it, I'm like, it's not City.
I feel like that's the biggest issue with it is that while I think it's a solid game, like I really do, but is it different from Arkham City? Not really. Like there's like a few things thrown in there, but nothing I would say is very significant. There is one thing they kind of tried to add in there where you have to reconstruct a crime scene.
Okay.
Like you have to kind of fast forward and rewind and figure out certain crime scenes in the game, which I thought was kind of cool, but it gets a little repetitive because you sort of figure out like, oh, it's pretty much doing the same thing every time, and it just feels like more of Arkham City, but not as well. Like I feel like you said before, like the polish is the best part, and when you play a game like Arkham City and even Arkham Asylum, these games were very well thought out, and it feels like with Arkham Origins, there was definitely a rush to get it out for like holiday 2013 because the game, I remember playing it on the Wii U, and the Wii U did not get any of the DLC. And the other thing about it, I can't even comment on this part about it, is that the game had multiplayer that got trashed. So
well, I don't even know what.
It's an interesting concept, actually.
How did that even work?
So I think 2 people played as Batman and Robin, and then other people played as members of Joker's gang or Bane's gang.
Oh, it was that's interesting.
Yeah, so like 2 people have the Batman Robin powers, like you take them out, and then the other ones, it was kind of like a first-person
shooter.
game.
That's not not a terrible.
In theory, it sounds good.
There's so many games that are designed that way now.
Yeah.
Like the new Predator Hunting Ground, that's exactly what that game is.
But probably had more time to polish it.
Yeah, like that game looks very polished.
And it stinks that the DLC didn't come out for the Wii U because the DLC is your first encounter with Mr. Freeze.
Yeah.
Because I mean, that was the thing I like about the story being grounded too, is that really the Joker's scheme is that he's going to blow up buildings. Like that's it. Yeah. It's very grounded. It's not some ridiculous, overly comic booky plot. And I remember when I was playing the game, I was like, because Bane is a pretty big part of the game. He's one of the assassins hired to kill you.
Yeah.
And I remember thinking when I saw it, I was like, why does Bane look normal in this game? Because when you see him in Asylum and City, like I said, muscles on muscles. He's a big
monster,
walking
man.
bicep. And in this game, he looks normal. And I was kind of playing this game going like, like, why does he look so normal? And then at the end of the game, he like super injects himself with venom. You're like, oh, because at the very end of the game, he becomes the big giant.
Okay.
Mutated.
That's interesting.
It's just, I feel like the game's story is pretty bare bones, but it works. It's really just the characterizations. It's Batman learning to trust the GCPD. You see him developing a relationship with Gordon. You see him working through his relationship with Alfred. Like you see him with his first encounter with the Joker, where Batman catches him at the end, really lays it into him, and then kind of finds himself at this crossroads of like, should I kill this person? Like, what should I do? And then it's the beginning of that rivalry. So I feel like the character stuff that they did in this game is excellent, even if the gameplay is not up to par with Arkham City and doesn't really compare.
I mean, to be fair, like that is hard to do.
Yeah.
Like like, and I think I was talking to my girlfriend about this earlier, and it's like the like I always found like the most interesting thing about video games to me, especially like video games that really nail it, is like a lot of times like their stories are able to be deeper and more compelling than movie storylines just because they have the time to really flesh their stories out. But I also find it interesting that you can hold somebody's attention for 10 hours with your story.
Yeah.
And then you have these really iconic moments from, graphic novels or just in general where it's like, how do you design something through code and that translates to being fun?
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And I'm like, that's got to be like one of the hardest things to do.
Yeah.
So like I give the game, like, again, like I don't want to hate on the game. I never played it myself.
It gets it. I think, like I said, definitely the weakest one, but I think it gets a bad rap. It is definitely a playable game and has a good story. I think it's not a game of all the Arkham games. It's the only one I can't really say I've ever visited again.
Mm-hmm.
But I think it's worth a playthrough.
Okay.
I think it's worth one playthrough. And that's it. Because I guess really, really quickly, there's Arkham Origins Blackgate.
Mm-hmm.
So, to coincide with the release of Arkham Origins, they came out with a portable game for PS Vita and the Nintendo 3DS.
Oh, okay.
That one, I would say, like I said, it's not terrible. Like, because I feel like Arkham Origins is good.
Yeah.
It's not great. It's not bad. It's good.
Mm-hmm.
Whereas with Arkham Origins Blackgate, it's not bad, but I wouldn't really go as far as to say it's good.
Mm-hmm.
It's like a side-scroller Batman game, which in itself is interesting. I like the whole element of it being a 2.5D platformer.
Mm-hmm.
But they try to put the mechanics of the game into a 2D environment, so the Predator mode and the combat really doesn't work.
Yeah, that
they need. I like the 2.5D angle of it. Just go full into the platforming side of it. Make it a different. Like, it could still be an Arkham game, but be a different gameplay style if it's portable. I feel like trying to make it a side scroller, but also implementing the combat and the Predator mode, which very much takes place in a 3D space in the games, it just really doesn't work that well. But like, I like the fact that it's kind of a Metroidvania game a little bit, because the people who worked on it did the most recent Metroid game that came out for the 3DS. I think it was called Samus Returns, and I like that game a lot. So you gotta start from somewhere.
Yeah.
I think actually you might be able to, because I remember at one point they actually put it on the Wii U eShop, because the 3DS one does not look as good as the PS Vita one.
Mm-hmm.
I think you might be able to get it on Xbox and PlayStation, maybe on PS3, Xbox 360. I'm not sure on that.
Mm-hmm.
I don't really think I could recommend it. I never finished it either. That's the other thing. Like, I feel like all the other games I beat, I got about halfway through Blackgate and was kind of like, I'm done.
Yeah.
this isn't great. But Arkham Origins, give it a shot. Blackgate, if you must.
All right, like, I guess if I find a way to play it, I'll do it.